Hey, everybody, it's Henry Burris, former three-time Grey Cup champion and also CFL Hall of Famer, and currently an offensive assistant coach with the Chicago Bears, and I'm ready to start digging deep.
I'm Mark Sutcliffe, and I'm on a quest to learn from the best. Welcome to Digging Deep, presented by Zen Books and Abacus Data. This is the latest in our series of one-on-one conversations with really interesting, thoughtful, accomplished leaders in many different fields. On this episode, Football Hall of Famer Henry Burris and the leadership lessons of a true champion on and off the field. As a child in Oklahoma, Henry Burris dreamed of being a quarterback and winning the big games. But that dream didn't work out exactly as he planned. In college, his team won only 5 games in 4 seasons. And after waiting for hours for his name to be called, Henry was passed over in the NFL draft. He says he cried like a baby, wondering if his career was over. But Henry Burris found a different path. He ended up in Canada, and he won 3 Grey Cup titles in the Canadian Football League. The last of those came in dramatic fashion at the age of 40 when he led the Ottawa Redblacks to a championship in only their 3rd season. Last year, Henry was bawling his eyes out again, but this time it was when he found out he was inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. The NFL draft wasn't the only time that football managers and coaches underestimated Henry Burris. As a black quarterback, Henry was encouraged to think about trying a different position. Even after achieving success in the Canadian Football League, he overcame significant knee injuries. He was cast aside more than once as coaches chose other, younger, different quarterbacks. But every time, Henry came back stronger. And he even fought through a pregame knee injury that later led to surgery and crutches when he played his final game and won his last championship. Henry is now a coach with the Chicago Bears of the National Football League. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. I know you will. You're going to learn a lot from it. We talk about the many lessons about leadership, building great teams, and overcoming adversity that Henry has accumulated through a lifetime of football and other experiences. We talk about the fitness and conditioning that it took to be successful at 40. We talk about his relationship with his wife and his 2 sons, and how they have a Burris Award for hustle in their home. And we talk about what it means to be in the stands for someone else. All right, one last thing before we get started. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to our podcast and post a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And share this podcast with your network. And if you're looking for more information on this episode, on the podcast in general, or on any other content that we produce along these themes, please go to letsdigdeep.com. That's letsdigdeep.com. Now, let's start digging deep with Football Hall of Famer Henry Burris. Henry, it's so great to see you and to chat with you again. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I'll share with you, we're going to get to this later, but just before we talk today, I watched the video of when you learned about being inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. And that is just, I was in tears watching that. So a really powerful moment. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Great story. Let's start by going through some of our rapid fire questions and learning a little bit more about you. So what would you say is your fondest childhood memory?
Fondest childhood memory. Well, in Spire, Oklahoma, where I grew up, football is everything. And for me, it was probably that time I learned that I was going to be the starting quarterback of my high school football team, because every kid who sits in the stands who dreams of playing quarterback one day aspires to be that guy. And for me, getting that opportunity to lead my teammates out on the field in front of my parents and all my friends, the people that truly mean so much to you, to be able to play and hold down that position for me meant so much, because it wasn't just only on the field you could make impressions and change people. It was also off the field with the next generation, as far as helping impact them by the fact of sharing your story of what it took for you to reach your dreams and hoping that they could do the same thing as well. So definitely being the starting quarterback. And once I found that out, definitely tears came to my eyes.
Amazing. Who was your hero when you were 10 years old?
Well, number one, my dad. My dad was everything. I mean, for my dad to go fight in the Vietnam War, and thankfully he came home, because if he didn't, I wouldn't have been born. But the thing is just how you made the transition of going through just, excuse my language, but modern day hell. You know what I mean? As far as, fighting in that war, and, having bullets just zing by him, and, of course, hitting other people in the convoy. But thankfully, he wasn't injured. But for him to be able to come back home and share those stories, and really not deal with a serious case of PTSD, but again, different little things would happen. But he was always a man who taught me, regardless of what happens when you're at work, always leave it at the front door. And to see that he went through what he experienced over in Vietnam during that war, and for him to come back and impact the people in our community the way he has, being a social worker and helping see kids from broken homes getting to universities to fulfill their dreams, and helping change their realities and the culture that they grow up in for their children's children. I tip my hat off to him for teaching me those things. So regardless if, I was getting cut or booed out of a stadium or played the game of my life, whenever I walked through those doors to my family, I always made sure I came in that door, regardless of where it was, in Ottawa or wherever it was in Canada. When I was on the field, I was Henry Burris, the football player, but off the field, I was just Henry Burris, the person. And I never brought any of the emotions of the game with me home or to whatever event I was involved in.
Wow, that's a really powerful lesson. So was it always about football for you, or did you ever think you were going to be something else when you grew up?
Well, football was always at the forefront of things. And, it took me to college, it took me to university, and of course it paid my way through university. And to be able to go to Temple that far away from home, some bills had to be paid. And I'm thankful because, it would put my parents in a tough spot. They were both blue collar workers working 9 to 5s. And, for me to go to a distinguished university like a Temple University with the alumnus list that they have, I'm truly thankful that, they thought I had the skills to help pay for some of the bills. And so to be able to take advantage of that opportunity and to immerse myself in a much different culture and atmosphere, being in a major city compared to home, I went in thinking I was going to be a political science major like my old man was. But then I found out, man, they don't make as much money. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I want to try to do something else. But I also thought I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon and going into sports medicine. But then when I talked to my resource counselor, she said, you're going to graduate if you play professional football from medical school around 33, 34 years old. And I'm thinking, no, I don't want to do that. And so getting involved in for me, in broadcasting, people always told me I could speak well, and I love talking to people and entertaining people. So for me, broadcasting was the way to go. And for me, I always felt that, if it wasn't sports, definitely broadcasting was going to be my calling card.
Okay. And instead of becoming an orthopedic surgeon, you became a patient.
Yeah, basically on a number of occasions.
Yeah. What is your life story in 6 words?
I hope I made people smile.
Nice. That's a good one.
And that's it. That's it. I say
like
that
it
because we need more of that in this world today.
Yeah, that's a good one. For what do you feel most grateful?
I feel most grateful that I had 2 loving parents. I mean, for a lot of kids growing up, and especially, and it's unfortunate I have to say this, there's a lot of minority, men that are growing up without both parents at home. And, for me to have that father figure, to have that strong mother who, always taught us right from wrong, to have a father who taught me right from wrong, but also led by example by going out and working hard each and every day, but coming home with that same upbeat attitude, regardless of what the situation was. And I always watched him from afar, and he taught me how to carry myself as a man and as a professional, regardless of what your line of work is. But he just taught me how to be a man. And now that I am a parent and I am a father of 2 young boys and a beautiful wife, I just follow after my father's footsteps and those types of things. So I'm truly a parent that, I was lucky enough to have both of my parents, and luckily enough that they're still living today.
Good for you. Yeah, that is good fortune. And I mean, that's, I talk a lot about the role of luck in our lives, and that is an element of luck, right? That there are lots of people who just don't have that opportunity when they're children. It's not their choice. It's just the circumstance they were born into, right?
And look how many people have lost parents during COVID. I
Yeah.
mean, and especially when it comes to the minority population and the Black population, there's been
Yeah.
so many that have been lost. And you know, it's like each and every time the phone rings, you always hope that it's always good news on the other end. But thankfully, both my parents, they've, had their vaccinations, and they're still fully healthy and running wild. They still have grandkids that are keeping them on their toes. So as long as they have that and they still have that energy and that passion within them, that light will continue to shine. And I'm thankful for that.
So you've had some great moments in your career and in your life. What would you say has been the best year of your life so far?
Uh, now, I got to make sure I say this year of 2004 because that was the year I got married. Okay, Mark, you're not going to get me on that one now.
Yeah.
I can't say great couple or anything, but I have to say my biggest championship was marrying my wife. In 2004, and for me, I'll be honest. I'll be frank with you that, once that happened, look at my career after that. I mean, my career professionally as a football player took off, and so many great things happened, winning championships. My performance and output, to me, skyrocketed, both on and off the field. We got so many things charitable wise going on. And, for me, I played things. I was like a bat out of hell, just trying to achieve things. But my wife came along and she gave me some focus. She gave me a purpose. She gave me, she provided the brains of the outfit, and to have her behind, by my side and me be by her side, together we made one heck of a team, and we still do make one heck of a team. But for me, my life got simpler and my focus got narrower. And for me, it was just time to do the things that I was asked to do the things that I have passion with, because I have somebody by my side who's walking with me and that I'm walking with her. That helps make, I guess, each and every obstacle that much easier to take on, because it's not only a one-man show, it's a two-person show, and we feel together, whatever we put our hearts to, we can conquer it.
That's beautiful. I love that. What would you say has been the toughest year of your life?
Man, toughest year would have to have been 2000. Well, it's a couple of years. We lost both my wife's parents. 2008 and 2009. I know we did win a Grey Cup, in that year in 2008, but shortly after my wife's parents returned home after the 2007 holiday season, we lost their mother early that January 2008, and then her father lived a couple of years later, and he passed away, unfortunately, after that. So, those were two of the toughest times where, two of our pioneers that showed us how to live life. And we looked at both our parents the same way, where they loved each other and did everything together. And both their parents were principals and helped educate the youth and just showed us the blueprint of how to, raise a family and to treat other people and to help make an impression on others. And to lose them was truly tough. And of course, time heals all wounds, but it's definitely one of the things that you look back on, and whenever those dates come by, it's always a difficult time.
Yeah, no question. What one person has had the greatest impact on your life?
Well, outside of my father, I've had a number of coaches, actually, from Chris Bunch, who was my high school football coach, to have the same person repeating the same words that your father did, and kind of that father figure away from home that would kick your butt when you got out of line and tell you not to do things and continually tell you what you hear other people telling you as far as what type of bright future you have ahead of you if you make the right decisions. But not only just saying it, but showing examples of what that means. And to have a coach that had other players, move forward and play, collegiate sports, playing football and such, and to see just how successful their lives went, regardless if they made it to the pros or not. But just to see it, the fact that they had that focus and had that eye of the tiger mentality, he helped put that within me along with my father. But to have a guy like Chris Bunch, who's now in the Oklahoma State Hall of Fame, as far as, one of the greatest coaches to ever coach in that state, I'm truly thankful that I had that type of mentor outside of the home. And, for him to mold me the way he did away from my parents, and for me to move forward and to, go to Temple and then head to Canada, and to be able to maintain those same initial teachings that he put within me, really made a big difference. And there's things that I'll never forget. And I always tell him thank you whenever we come together and speak to one another.
That's special. What is the most important lesson you've learned that you would share with other people?
It's my motto for our foundation. I always say that we were born with two hands, one for hard work and the other to give back, because that's truly the premise of why we're here on this earth. We were here to live for each other and to help each other. Live the life that we all should be guaranteed to live, is the life of liberty and the pursuit of happiness, and to love our loved ones and to go out and work hard and help provide for our loved ones. And for me, those who, not everybody was given the same type of foundation to work from, and you want to help make sure that they have that foundation and that support staff. And that's what we are all here for, is to help each other. And right now, this world needs a wake-up call to make sure that's happening.
Yeah. One hand to work and one hand to give back.
Yes, sir.
I like that. What would people be most surprised to learn about you, do you think?
Let's see. Well, I know one thing that I think a lot of people found out who've attended my charity event that we had every year sponsoring Big Brothers and Big Sisters, is that I'm an avid maker of bourbon. I make a bacon bourbon that a lot of people who have purchased it at different charity events have fallen in love with it. And
nice.
I'm not really a person who drinks a lot, but I always tell the story of, I was, living in Canada. The Canadians, you guys turned me into a drinker. I'll say that, because I didn't drink before I came to Canada. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. But one morning I was making bacon on my charcoal grill, and I put some maple syrup and cracked pepper on my bacon. And I had some bourbon in a glass, and I'm making breakfast. And you're probably asking, why are you drinking bourbon that early? Well, it was a holiday weekend.
I don't judge.
And so I stuck the bacon with the maple into the glass of bourbon, and I stirred it around. And upon doing that, I took a swig, and I was like, whoa, we are on to something right here. And honestly, I yelled it to my wife, baby, you got to try this. And she's definitely not into that type of stuff, too strong. And she took a sip of it, and she was like, that's special. And I just continued to tinker with it and play with it. And next thing you know, we ended up creating the Burris Bacon Bourbon, and we sold it at different charity events, and we've had
awesome.
people approach us to buy it. And it even had some distillers approach us to try to purchase the recipe and mass produce it. But we've held off thus far, but who knows, maybe in the near future, we might refocus on that and make that happen.
Cool. What's your secret talent?
Secret talent is poetry. Actually, I love writing poetry. I love writing motivational speeches, but for me, it's all through poetry. And, but for me, it's just another form of art that allows you to free your mind, and things that are on it, whether it's good or bad or indifferent or whatever you want to write about, you just, kind of let your mind free through your fingertips with a pencil or pen in it. And, but it's just a different way to express yourself. And it's, one of the rights that we're all entitled to. And so it's something that I love doing. I have a number of books where it's just front to back, just showered with different thoughts on mine that just come to life through a pencil and a pad. And so I'm truly thankful that I don't know where it came from. Maybe it was just young crushes and broken hearts, I guess, just all culminating into to just one creation. But, I'm truly thankful for it.
So have you ever published anything that you've written?
No. It's stuff that I typically share when I'm speaking now these days, because it's something how I go back and I'll find something that I guess corresponds with what I'm speaking about or to what type of group I'm talking to. And then I can reach back and find some of that history or whatever or occurrences that I've written about, and I'm able to share it with them and then elaborate as far as what my thought process was with it. But maybe one of these days, it might be the written thought or something like that, or, the thoughts that go through my mind as I'm about to get crushed by a 300-pound guy, you know what I mean? Something like that.
I'd like to read the poem about that.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the scariest thing you've ever done?
Let's see. I think probably the scariest thing for me would have been, okay, I'll share this one. The scariest thing for me that ever happened was in 1999, I'm playing for the Calgary Stampeders. And I scrambled up the middle of the field against the BC Lions in my first start at McMahon Stadium. And 20 yards downfield, the deep safety for the BC Lions is approaching to tackle me. I go to make a move on him and I cut off my right leg and I feel a pop in my knee. And I had never felt that before. I didn't know what was going on, but all I know is it just felt like my leg just bent in half. And I had tore my ligaments in my knee. And like for me, I was scared as heck because I didn't know what had happened. I fell down quickly, of course, just started screaming because I had never experienced that moment ever before in my life. And for me, I had reached a crossroads of whether, this was going to end my career or was it going to, create more determination in me to overcome this, to do what the doctors say, to continue to work towards my dream. And the one, I guess passion that I truly had at the time was being a quarterback. And that was, almost 17 years prior to me finishing my career.
Yeah.
So I'm glad.
Well, I was going to say it was 17 years before you felt another pop in your knee.
Yeah.
Which we're going to talk about coming up, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. So you thankfully you recovered from that, but that would be really scary. What would be the message of your commencement address if you were speaking to a group of students today?
And I say this to a lot of kids. I hope you figure out a way to fail in your life, because that means you're aspiring to do bigger and better things. And the thing I always tell people is the fact that, like, I love watching a lot of National Geographic shows, like when wild dogs attack hyenas and lions versus the hyenas. But the thing you always run into, and I tell people this all the time, that if you live life in the slow lane or in the non-fast lane and you're on cruise your entire life, you pretty much experience the same thing every single day. But once you mash your foot on that gas and say, I'm going to get much further today, I'm going to get that much more done today, I'm going to be better at whatever I do today, watch what happens in your life. Because for me, whenever I talk about the jungle, and I always watch this and I'm like, people say, oh, if you're bigger, stronger, faster, blah, 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 you'll be the best. But I'm like, the lion has never been the fastest. That's the cheetah. He's never been the strongest or the biggest. That's the elephant. And he's definitely not the smartest, because they say sometimes I think they say the ostrich is one of the smartest animals in the world, but he always seems to get away. But the thing is, the lion just has a mentality, about itself, that he's the king of the jungle. You know what I mean? And, you could see a pack of 20 hyenas, but he's not going to take that lion down. And if 20 hyenas are about to feast on a buffalo, here comes one lion, and he'll take on all 20 and he'll get that buffalo. Why is it? He doesn't worry about the things that he doesn't have. He worries about the thing that he or she wants. And that's what their focus is on. And so I always tell kids all the time, when you put a weight on the bench press, for me, speaking to athletes, and you try to get it 10 times and you only get 8, is that it? Do you stop and say, well, I can't do it, so I'm never going to try it again? No, you keep trying over and over and over again. And that's what I mean by failing. If you fail, continue to try till you get it right, because once you get it right, you'll learn from the things you didn't do as well. And that's when you take your truest strides in life.
Awesome. Yeah. You don't know, the only way to know whether you've reached your limit is if you fail, right? If you never fail, you've never tested your limits.
Well, the thing is, and also when you wake up in the morning, if your goals aren't inspiring you enough to get up out of that bed and attack that day with a sense of urgency and excitement, then you aren't dreaming big enough if that's not the case. So make your dreams so big that you can't live without it. Like, I mean, for me, I can't live without cupcakes and ice cream. You know what I mean? And trust me, when I'm eating it, you'll see a different side of me. It's like a dog eating food out of a bowl. But the thing is, if you don't like there's certain things I don't like and I don't get as excited, but that's the same thing as your dreams. If you're truly excited about something, when you wake up in the morning, you will have that fire and that determination to seize each and every moment to make yourself better until you reach that goal. And Then when you do, I'm pretty sure you'll find another one to try to go and achieve.
Yeah. Now I'm going to suggest you've got to figure out a way now based on your current job. You've got to change that metaphor from lions to bears, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I don't want to be talking about lions too much.
No.
That's our rival now.
Yeah. Is there a book, Henry, that's had a big impact on you, a book that you're most likely to recommend to other people?
There's actually a number of books. I'm actually reading one right now. Let me grab this one for you. And this is one I'm actually reading right now. It's called Uncommon by Tony Dungy. And of course, Tony Dungy was a very successful head coach here in the NFL, and I mean, definitely a Hall of Famer and Super Bowl champion. But, for me, with me now going through my journey as being a player and now here I am as a coach in the NFL. I mean, I'm following the same path that he followed. And this book has made such a big difference in my life. And I also read a lot of books about different leaders. And I've read books on Colin Powell and Norman Schwarzkopf. And so I have different quotes from men like them who I always follow, because one I have up here right now, and it says from Colin Powell, he says, the moments that your troops stop following or stop calling you with problems is the moment your leadership has ceased. And so those types of things are just interesting points that I make sure I take heed of, when it comes to coaching young men as far as here in the game of football. But I also use that when I was a quarterback too, making sure I could always communicate with the guys that were on our team, just to be there for them whenever I could be.
Right on. Henry, thank you for answering those questions. We're going to take a quick break and start digging deep even more with Henry Burris. We're just going to take a quick break so I can tell you a little bit more about the presenting sponsor of Digging Deep, ZenBooks. ZenBooks is Canada's go-to cloud accounting firm. They are not your typical accounting firm. I know the founders, Colin and Eric. I've worked with them for several years. And here's why I think you should consider working with them too. First of all, they bring a fresh, unique, modern approach to what is a very old-fashioned industry. These guys were working remotely and in the cloud long before it became cool. ZenBooks also uses technology to your advantage. I think this is really important. They give you the tools and analysis you need to monitor your business in real time. That's so valuable right now when everything changes so quickly. Yes, they're a virtual accounting firm, but that doesn't mean they're offshore, and it doesn't mean they're inattentive. ZenBooks combines the efficiency and effectiveness of a cloud accounting service with all the benefits that you'd want from a trusted advisor, high-level advice, and strategic support. Now, here's what I think is going to happen if you work with ZenBooks. You'll probably start out taking advantage of their cutting-edge cloud accounting solutions, but in the long run, I think you'll stay with them because of their strategic guidance and problem-solving. Among their core values, they specifically list being candid and proactive. Isn't that exactly what you want from a trusted advisor? Look, even if you're already working with an accountant or a bookkeeper, or you have some accounting staff on your team, I think you should still talk to ZenBooks and learn more about their tools and their expertise. Check out ZenBooks at zenbooks.ca. That's zenbooks.ca. Digging Deep is all about helping you make better decisions, and so is Abacus Data. Most leaders struggle to connect with and engage their audiences. Why is that? It's because they aren't sure how they think and feel and how they will react. Abacus Data can give you the strategic insights you need to make better decisions and to make them confidently. Here's a good example. A major national union was recently negotiating a new agreement for its thousands of members. This had the potential to be a very difficult process. There were many competing interests. So they brought in Abacus Data to conduct thorough and detailed research of their members to learn exactly where they stood, what they were thinking, what they wanted. And as a result, they were able to secure a strong new deal that was accepted overwhelmingly in a national vote. Abacus Data helps all of its clients understand what's really happening in the minds of their employees, clients, and stakeholders. They help them avoid costly blind spots. And they're really good at what they do. In fact, Abacus Data was one of the most accurate pollsters in the 2019 Canadian federal election. Make the one decision that will improve all of your other decisions. Let Abacus Data help you move forward with confidence and clarity. Go to abacusdata.ca. That's abacusdata.ca. Henry, once again, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And, you're such an inspiring guy. You've got such a great energy about you. And, what you did on a football field, I know really just touched so many people. And what you did in the communities where you lived in Canada as well, I know had a huge impact. And just a small example of that, before we started recording, my son came into the room because he was super excited to meet you. He's just about to turn 12, but he remembers the Grey Cup from 5 years ago and Ottawa winning. And that was a big moment in his life. And he knows all about you, even though he was 7 when you retired. So that's the impact you've had. So I'm really grateful for all you've done and for your time today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about your childhood. You touched on it a little bit. When did sports become a big part of your life, and what was it like growing up in the town where you lived? I understand it was a pretty rural community in Oklahoma.
Yeah, definitely a farmer's town, small farmer's town of just over 2,000 people, Spiro, Oklahoma. And but you know what? If you ever seen the movie Friday Night Lights or Varsity Blues, those types of movies, that's pretty much the atmosphere I grew up in, where football was everything. And there were no combines or tractors baling hay on Friday nights in the state of Oklahoma, because the only lights that were on were at the football stadium in each local community or town that you drove through. And we weren't, for me, I graduated with 77 kids in my school. So it wasn't truly, it wasn't a large town. It was a small town, but the thing is, we had a large appetite for the game of sports, and especially for football. But I knew for me immediately, as soon as I was born, and we were in the backyards playing two-hand touch, and then on Fridays our high school football team would play, and we were there. And for me, I was dreaming about being a guy named Ted Phillips. He was our quarterback at the time when I was a kid growing up. And then on Saturdays, I would transition to watch the Oklahoma Sooners play, and Jamel Holloway and J.C. Watts and a number of great quarterbacks who played for the Oklahoma Sooners. And you transition to Sundays. And for me, I grew up closest to the Dallas Cowboys. And, for me, watching Danny White and Steve Pelluer and all the, famous Dallas Cowboy players play with Tom Landry as the head coach, that's what you aspire to do. Because, for me, it just seemed like life stopped when football occurred. For you to be able to be part of that showcase and help entertain people and show them your God-given ability was a part of every young man's dream. And for me, I took those dreams and made them a reality every time I woke up, and I worked hard each and every day with that vision on my mind. Whenever I was working out or in the weight room, I just wanted to make sure that dream came true one day for me. And I'm thankful that it did.
Do you ever think about what might have happened if you got injured or your football career got derailed and you never ended up doing all of this?
And that's something you think about every day. And you always make sure that when it comes to academics, that's first and foremost. And it's the same threshold that we, build our foundation on at home with our kids, that nothing comes before academics. Of course, family's over everything. But then when you step out of these doors, it's all about getting good grades, because you are going to university to get that degree. That's first and foremost. And, for my parents, both were educated. They both had bachelor and master's degrees. So again, at our house, there was a high standard already set. And for me, we carried that standard on, and both my wife and I carry that standard within our household as well. Anything less it's not accepted. It's not acceptable at all. And so for me, I had to make sure that I had standards I wanted to carry myself on and things I wanted to achieve by being in the top 10 of my class. Well, again, there was only 77 kids. So, to be number 10 in my class, was something I had put my heart to, but also to have a 3.25, when I left Temple University as well. So, there were certain things I had my mind set on. And of course, getting my degree was first and foremost, but, definitely to have that along with, having that athletic achievement. We always said, if you can be that double threat, it gives you that many more options, to decide from when that time comes. Because, for me, I had opportunities in broadcasting to take opportunities with CBS, maybe going in with CBS Sports out of college. But for me to have a chance to play professional sports, for me, it was like, while you have the opportunity, take full advantage of it, because at the end of the day, you can always go back and broadcast as that opportunity will always be there.
Yeah. And that moment when you left Temple, I'm pretty sure you only won something like 5 games in 4 years at Temple. Is that right? Like it
Oh
was.
man, Mark, you're bringing up bad
I
memories.
know.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. No, it's all right. No, no, yeah, we were 5-38. Oh my God,
Wow. Yeah.
5-39. Sorry, during my 4 years there, and man, you talk about some hard times. But for what people don't understand is each and every week. Temple at the time was kind of a program just like the Ottawa Red Blacks were. They were brand new program. They had just revamped everything, brought in an entire new staff, everybody from the athletic director down to the head coach and of course all the staff for the football team. But it was a new start, and for some reason I always had this on my mind that I wanted to help take nothing and turn it into something. And for me, that even took me into Canada, where I finished out my career, and we were able to achieve the inevitable there in Ottawa. And just kind of those moments make you immortal, I feel, where you did something that nobody else did. But yeah, doing it at Temple, it was tough because, I mean, if some great football players like Ray Lewis and the Marvin Harrisons, we had to play those guys week in and week out. Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick. I mean, we played some of the greatest players that ever played in this game against the University of Miami, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, and got our tails thumped week in and week out. But for some reason, each and every weekend when those lights came on, we showed up. We played our hearts out. We may not have won. It may not have came close to winning, but hey, we gave it all we could each and every weekend.
Yeah. So at the end of that, though, and by the way, I never really thought about how that experience would have set you up so well for taking over as the quarterback of an expansion team, as you did with the Red Blacks, and then very quickly made them a contender and a champion. So that you were ready for that in a way, which is kind of interesting. But after that, was that a big crossroads for you when you left Temple and you weren't drafted in the NFL and you had to make a decision about whether you continued by moving to Canada or went in a different direction with your career and your life?
I mean, it was a tough decision because, again, when you have your pro days and all the teams show up and they're working out, teammates that you have, or at that time I had on my team at Temple that were trying out for the NFL and the CFL and, other leagues that were out at the time. And, to see everybody else getting all the attention, it's like, hey, what about me? And whenever any attention did come to you at the time, people were talking about, you switching positions, playing receiver, playing safety. And, for me, that was a slap in the face because I'm like, hey, I did some good things while I was here. And yes, you're right. I mean, it did reach a crossroads to where I had to decide, did I want to continue this? And then, of course, the NFL draft occurred, and, I watched it with my parents, hoping my name would be called. My name never was called. I returned back to my dorm room in Philly at Temple. And when I got into my room, I closed the door, went into my room, closed it, and I just cried like a baby because, I didn't know. I mean, I was like, is this it? You know what I mean? Because I put so much into it. And unfortunately, winning 5 games, who takes all the blame? It's the quarterback, right? But the one person who did call me and cheered me up was my now wife, Nicole. And from that point on, I, was in contact with teams in Canada, and I had to ask myself, did I want to leave home and go play the game that I love? And at the end of the day, it was the game I loved. And so that was a tough crossroads, and it was a tough pill to swallow to hear those people say I couldn't. But I think that was where the fire first started getting lit. You know what I mean? As far as, that never say die attitude, and people can't determine your outcome. Only you can determine your outcome. And I really wanted to continue on, and not really to show them, but really to show myself that I could.
I read something recently about the underdog mindset, that even when you are the best, you have to think like you're in second place or third place. And I think a great example of that was Michael Jordan, right? If you watch The Last Dance, where he kept, even when he was winning championships with the Bulls, he would almost make up grievances with other teams and read something that somebody said or interpret something that somebody did and use that as the motivation, to come back and win again. And does that apply to you in a lot of ways? Like, I feel like there's something there with you that you always felt like you had something to prove.
Mark, that's why you're one of the best ever, man, because you know how to get it out of me. And I said that just now, saying that I didn't want to, show those people wrong. I wanted to prove it to myself. I'd be lying, because honestly, I did want to show those people up because, for me inside, each and every athlete, you have that competitive nature within you. And just as anybody does in any industry that, and especially when you're driven and you want to achieve something so badly, when people say you can't, you want in the end, when they walk up to you, to be like, okay, I was wrong. And you want to hear them say that, right? And it just seemed like each and every time, it happened within my career, I put another name on the list. And I could never forget whenever I heard those words, even back to high school, when my first high school coach before Chris Bunch, he told me I wasn't fast enough. I remember those things, when people tell you, because at the end of the day, they don't determine that, you do. And through your hard work, you can achieve anything. And for me, I still remember going into my last couple of years when, Marcel signed Trevor Harris, to bring him to Ottawa to take my place. I'm like, after all I've done, you're going to treat me like this? Sound like Aaron Rodgers right now, don't I? But that was the thing that I felt. And so I wanted to go out there and show them that you made the wrong decision. And so whenever I left the game of football, I left it on my terms. But yeah, you're right about that. I mean, you always try to find little triggers to get you going and to really motivate you, because again, each and every time you try to knock down new obstacles and prove people wrong, but only more logs get thrown on the fire by somebody else making a statement, and it really gets to you. But that's just the competitive nature inside of us that you hope never dies, because again, even once football is over, now I have other aspirations to go and achieve. And again, when somebody says that I can't, true, just sit back and watch me.
Yeah. Right on. I love that. And, I love the fact that, that first year of high school, how long ago was that? It's 25 years ago, maybe a little longer. You still remember that, right? Those, you're never going to forget that. Right. And I know exactly what you mean. Like, I can remember stuff like that too, and I think one of the things that I find really interesting about you is you have this really sort of warm exterior, this kind of laid back personality. But there's something else going on inside, right? And that's sometimes what people underestimate too, isn't it?
Well, 100%. I mean, of course, I am a nice guy. I'm Henry Burris, Smiling Hank, whatever you want to call me. But we all know there's a time and a place for everything, because in order to achieve something in life, you got to invest into that in this life. And I mean, for me, when I invest into it, I invest into it with my heart. I give it my all. I mean, there's times now where, of course, I just sat here and watched the draft just this past weekend, and, to see kids getting drafted, I tear up, because I'm happy to see those kids who put in that hard work, because I understand what it means. But the thing is, don't take that kindness for weakness, because there is a fire that's burning in there. And I do have that mentality that says, if you come for me, you will lose. You know what I mean? But you have to have that mentality in order to achieve things, because to me, I always use this ideology that if there were 1,000 people in a room, they're all after this one small breadcrumb. Who will get it? And if you don't believe you will, then you need to change your mentality. Well, in my mind, I believe I'm going to get that crumb. Yes, you have to be more patient to learn how to get that crumb compared to others who have been after it for years. But eventually, when your opportunity comes and you're in the front row, and it's you and a couple other people, have you put in the work? Have you focused and determined yourself to make that happen? So when that opportunity came, that pristine opportunity where you were on the front lines and you're given a chance to secure a certain position, will you get it done? And within your heart, if you've given it all you could, you have nothing to regret. And that's all we can ask for, is that opportunity.
Amen. Yeah. I love that. I can relate to that so much, because I think, within every one of us, there is that fire for something, right? And I know, I don't talk about this with a lot of people, but I think I've had conversations with my wife that I'd never have with anybody else about, despite my nice person exterior, how competitive I am about some things, right? Things that I would never say publicly, right?
And I can see it in your eyes, though.
Yeah. Don't get me started, Henry. Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about the role of quarterback, because, you can, on any team, you can be a leader, right? Like, you can be the shortstop on a baseball team or the right fielder on a baseball team. You can be a leader in the locker room. No matter what position you play, you can be a leader. But I don't know that there's any other position in sports that is by definition a leadership role like a quarterback, right? I mean, it is really unique in sports, I think. Can you talk about what it takes to be a quarterback?
Well, I think every position in all of sports, you have your role, you have your responsibility. But the one thing that's different about being a quarterback as compared to being a goalie in hockey, which everybody says, oh, it's a difficult position, compared to being a pitcher in baseball. Oh, it's a difficult position because it's all on your shoulder. A kicker in football, where it comes down to a couple of kicks and it makes or breaks you. The difference of being a quarterback is the ownership that you have to take, because you are the coach on the field. Like, things go through you. A quarterback, when it comes to ownership, you're also the culture setter in a locker room, because the attitude that you bring into that room each and every day will help dictate and determine the type of team that you are creating. And so you have to ask yourself, before you step in that room, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and determine who you are as a person. Because I always tell a lot of quarterbacks, never try to be somebody that you are not. But the thing you always should do is never ask somebody to buy into you without you buying into them. Because the first thing I always tell quarterbacks is take your guys out for beers. If they like beers, if they just like water, take them out for a water. But get to know the people that you're with, because as a quarterback, you have to not only manage the game plan, make good decisions on the field, but you also have to manage your teammates and your family off the field by making sure you invest into them, into their interests, into the things that make them who they are, that make them tick. And in my mind, that's just creating that connectivity that creates that culture within the locker room, which creates a family that's willing to go out there and play hard for each other, not just for the person, but you're willing to play for their family. Because again, if you're not winning games and doing things you're supposed to do, everybody's buying plane tickets and moving homes, and that's not a great lifestyle to live.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you a little bit, Henry, about the pressures of being a Black quarterback, of being a Black athlete. Do you feel that Black athletes are judged by a different standard, and that there was a different kind of scrutiny on you during your career?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I mean, it's unfortunate that, people still, look at race and they still have stereotypes that, they still stand up on when it comes to judging race.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago that there was this perception that, that Blacks could only play certain positions well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And having, the New York Giants tell me that I should play safety. But in my mind, I told them, hold up, I just burnt your safety that you just drafted. We had a field day on them. So it's things like that where, most Black athletes are put in positions where they, pretty much you're part of the programming. You're not the programmer. That's part of what the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach, the play caller, and the quarterback, they are the smart guys, whereas the rest of the guys are athletic.
Right.
And so
like the Black athletes were the horses, right?
Exactly.
And not the riders,
Exactly. Yeah. And you always hear that connotation still today. Yeah. You always hear that narrative today, where when you hear them talk about quarterbacks, for example, we drafted Justin Fields from Ohio State, then they always say, he's an athletic two-way quarterback. And the thing is, but he's still just a quarterback. You know what I mean? Just because certain guys can't run from getting hit and other guys just rather sit there and get hit, that's their decision. You know what I mean? Is it smart? Probably not. But to me, I'd rather be the fast guy who can actually run away from a hit and live to see tomorrow instead of being on a stretcher. You know what I mean? But the thing is, we are judged at a different standard. And to me, it starts with the fact that, I mean, let's be real, Mark. I mean, a lot of the owners, a lot of the head coaches, they don't look like me. And it's unfortunate. Does that mean anything? No, because nobody on this earth had a decision of how they looked and what color they were. It was given to us, by the person up above who created all this. They made that decision. And the thing is, for us to take, that law into our own hands and try to dictate what that looks like, I mean, it's a tragedy in my mind. But the fact is, I mean, the whole narrative of don't judge a book by its cover, I still can't believe that even before a person opens their mouth that they're already judged. Because, we talk about how you should carry yourself, how you should look, why you should educate yourself. Well, even though we still do that, a lot of people still aren't giving us a chance to prove who we truly are. But also, when you have a passion for something, do you allow that to hold you back? No. And the thing is, regardless of, after winning a Grey Cup, I was told if I came back to Ottawa, I'd be the backup behind Trevor Harris. And I'm like, what? Are you serious? I'm out of here. But the bottom line is I continue to knock on doors and continue to find ways to take that next step as far as in my journey to continue to do the things that I love, because regardless of the number of people that may say you just don't cut it, there will be somebody who will honestly say, yes, you do cut it. And again, there are some whites as well who have to deal with some of those things today, just because they don't come from a certain family or a certain upbringing or have money to help them or know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. But honestly, like you said, there are those narratives that still exist. It's better than it used to be because there are more Black quarterbacks getting an opportunity to play. But still, that whole narrative still does exist where you're held to a certain standard where if you make a certain amount of mistakes, you're out of this league. Because I will say this, you still don't hear the fact of a lot of Black quarterbacks being looked at as great locker room guys. And sometimes some of the best quarterbacks who are able to bring guys together are Black quarterbacks. And it's a shame that we aren't looked at as true leaders who can help bring locker rooms together to enable our team to be successful.
Yeah, with all the evidence to the contrary, right? I mean, that's, yeah.
And let me ask you this question. How many times do you see Black quarterbacks as backups that are pushing white quarterbacks? And typically it's Black quarterbacks taking the job of other Black quarterbacks. And I mean, just those little narratives, it's crazy. And I've always said that in my times in the CFL, I never saw a Black quarterback take a white quarterback's position. I always saw it the opposite. And yes, there were guys that were injured. Like for me, I backed up Dave Dickinson, and I had to go to Saskatchewan to get an opportunity. But you hardly ever see a Black quarterback truly taking a white quarterback's position. But more opportunities are coming about now where you have young rookies here in the NFL getting drafted and getting those opportunities. But I know back in my day, you hardly ever saw that.
So now you're coaching in the NFL, which has got to be, I mean, that's a form of a dream come true, I would think, for you. Can you talk us through how that came about? It did come about in part because of a diversity fellowship program. That's where it started, and now you're on board with the Bears because the NFL is more aware of the lack of Black coaches in management and in coaching, right?
Yes, sir. And I'm truly thankful, for the Chicago Bear organization. And, I was once this young snotty-nosed kid here trying to play quarterback and I just super excited to be in a place like Chicago playing for such a historic and successful organization. And I forgot the fact that, hey, Hank, you got to play quarterback now. And but again, I learned from those times. But I'm so thankful for Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, Ted Phillips, the McCaskey family, and one of my real good friends, Cliff Stein, for believing in me and giving me this opportunity to now be here, finally being a full-time coach, assistant coach. And I'm thankful for that. And it was something that after football, I had to ask myself, did I want to jump into coaching right away and try to pursue this opportunity of entering the Bill Walsh, fellowship program, and which, like he's mentioned, trying to create more diversity. But for me, it wasn't based on the fact that, diversity or what. I just felt that, look at what I've achieved, but this is something that I've had a passion for. And, but again, I had to spend more time with family before I made this jump, as due to the hours and the demands of being a coach. But, for me, after all I went through, I wanted to, share the knowledge that I gained with the next generation. And I was just hopeful that an organization would give me an opportunity to do that. And things happen for a reason, and the timing that they happen. I remember following the Grey Cup game in 2019, Hamilton and Winnipeg in Calgary. The very next day, I get a call from Cliff Stein, and he mentioned to me, "Hey, man, have you thought about getting into coaching? If there's a time you're going to do it, right now is the time." And he said, "Yeah, I see you doing some great things, and to be able to come out here and be a part of it, to receive that call from Matt Nagy and head coach Matt Nagy, and for him giving me this opportunity. I mean, I've been humbled ever since, and to meet him and the entire staff here, and to hear the things that they've implemented into me, the things that they've taught me and given me an opportunity to grow, I'm truly thankful for it. Because now I look at the fact of all the things that we're able to do in Canada and all the kids that we're able to impact, now having this platform along with this foundation and organization with the NFL's branding and with the Chicago Bears, just look at all the people that we can impact now from doing this. And that's part of the bigger picture, but doing it through sport, like I've always mentioned, you would never hear me cease to take advantage of this opportunity. I'm thankful that they gave me a chance to do this.
Right on. And I know you're going to do so well with it. Let's go back to your playing career for a moment. How did you stay healthy enough to win a championship, to lead a team when you were 40 years old? What did it take physically, mentally for you to be that successful at that age?
Never saying that, you hear the whole cliche of if it's not broke, don't fix it, do what got you there. Well, to me, that's when you plateau early, and that's when people catch up to you. I think one thing you mentioned is always finding that way to maintain that edge. And I always wanted to find a way to keep myself healthy, because I still remember when I dislocated my left shoulder in 2007 against the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and my arm couldn't move. I'm laying there on the turf and I'm trying to move my arm and it won't move. Like, that was freaking me out. That was number two, the things that scared me after the knee, but,
Yeah.
but I always, and to me, the tongue is a powerful thing. And to people that are listening, I always tell people all the time, when you say negative things will happen to you. And for me, I told myself when they put my shoulder back in, I started my rehab. I told our head therapist and team doctor, Pat Clayton, I said, I'm never going to have an injury ever again. I'm never going to have an injury ever again in my career. And I talked to people, I made calls, I made sure I invested into my body like never before to find ways to make myself bulletproof as possible. And I got into mobility. I started doing Olympic style lifting. My weight went from around 200 pounds to 225. I started deadlifting. I think I was deadlifting over 700 pounds. I was eating over 6,000 calories per day, and I managed everything. I marked down everything. I just kept up with everything I was doing because I was that devoted to be the meanest, on the field the next season that I stepped out there on the field. Because as soon as I got injured, people started saying, oh, there he goes. That's the end. This is the start of the ending for Henry Burris. He can't run anymore. He can't do these things. How is he going to play now that he's not going to be using his athletic ability like he once used to? And so for me, I vowed I would never get injured again. And that held true until that final game when I had that cartilage tear. But again, for me to go from 2008 all the way to 2016 injury-free, and for me to play probably my best years of football after dedicating myself, it all came with challenging myself, finding a way to maintain that edge, but also discovering new ways to make my body that much better. And like I use the term bulletproof, to make sure I stayed injury-free.
And nutrition and diet were a big part of that, I know. Oh, yeah. And you and I spoke about this before, and I told my son about it. And when he met you before our interview started, he asked you about this thing. You basically gave yourself 1 week a year where you could eat whatever you wanted, but the other 51 weeks of the year, you were on a really strict diet of what you were eating to make sure you supported your training and that you were as healthy as possible for football, right?
Oh, 100%. And to me, that was probably the best part about, making or transforming my body into what it truly became. And Harry Gooman, actually, who's with Personalized Health there in Ottawa, I told him, I was like, I need a nutritionist that can help me get my body right. You know what I mean? Because again, here I was 38, 39, 40, 41, 42 years old, trying to play the game of football, a young kid's game where, I would ask most kids, hey, do you know who Milli Vanilli is? And they'd be like, what flavor milkshake is that? I'd be like, no, it's a music group, it's driving me crazy. But I had to find ways to improve just my body inside and out. And he put me on this strict diet where I would eat nothing but veggies and proteins only. And for the first month, I couldn't do anything. And it was called the reset diet. I couldn't eat any sweets. And I love my sweets, especially ice cream, no dairy, no bread, none of that. And so I had to find a way to incur this into my diet, but still get the 5,000 calories in there that I was used to in my body as far as maintaining my weight. But as I was doing this, I started to figure out that, man, my body is conforming to this and I don't need as much calorie intake as I once did. And now the fact that I was lifting and still getting as strong that, I don't need all that protein, but still I'm getting it naturally instead of doing the supplements now. So he introduced a new way for me to incur these calories and the things I needed, the proteins and everything I need to keep my body clean. And honestly, for 3 months, I didn't have any bacon bourbon. I didn't have any sweets. And I think once I got past the first month, every 2 weeks, I could, have a cheap meal. And so I would take full advantage of that. But honestly, as time went on, I really didn't care if I had the cheap meal or not. And Of course, I would still have my glass of bourbon or a glass of wine, but it really wasn't important to me anymore because for my body, that was like a foreign substance now, as opposed to me eating veggies for 2 weeks when I would have to just struggle to get to that cheat meal or for me, it was a regular thing that was occurring. I was reintroducing new habits to my body, which was becoming part of my everyday lifestyle. And it was the best I ever felt, after the first 3 months, and my body was conforming great. When it comes to certain things, as far as when they talk about inflammation in your body, my body felt as fresh as it had ever felt. And here I was at the age of 40 years old. I felt better than I did when I was in my 20s because I was putting the right things in my body. But the thing was, I always told myself I had to maintain that 1 week where during a year I could just go off on food. And Harry always told me, if you have to, have your cheat diet every couple of weeks, but do this first month, and every 2 weeks, have a cheat meal, and we'll go from there. But trust me, after doing that for the entire year, going through the season of still incurring all those calories and doing it in a different type of way, working out hard and getting my body to recover that much quicker at the age of 40 years old. But then when that 1 week came, you always saw everything from Apple Jacks to Captain Crunch to Beaver Tails to whatever, that whatever lucid dreams I had at night about food, it came true. It came true during that 1 week from Christmas to New Year's. But that next day after New Year's on January 2nd, everything was off. Back to square one.
That's incredible discipline. So I wanted to talk about your family, Henry. I have to say, I'm really touched by the fact that even though you are you were a professional athlete, you're now a coach, you've had an incredible career, you were inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame, you won 3 Grey Cups. When I asked you some questions earlier that could have provoked a response about moments on the field, you talked about things to do with your family, the loss of your in-laws, when you got married. I was thinking the ring. Hold up your hands for a second. Just hold up your hands. You got one ring on, and it's your wedding ring. No Grey Cup rings there, right? So
no.
Yeah. So you wear one ring. It's your wedding ring. It's not a championship ring. So obviously, I'm really touched by that. And can you tell me more about your partnership with your wife, Nicole?
Well, before I say that, I always say the fact that what makes me is the person I am, not what I do. And for me, the person that makes me who I am is the people that you spend the most time with. That's my family. And, I'm nothing without my wife. I'm nothing without my kids. And like I said, my wife gave me perspective. My kids gave me even more perspective and a sense of direction as far as where we need to go and everything that we do. Who is it for? And it's for them. It's for their tomorrow. It's for their future. And again, I wouldn't have played that final year to win the Grey Cup if my wife hadn't said yes. But I needed her to say yes and for my kids to be on board because, again, somebody had to be in the stands during those hockey games to cheer for them and to make sure that they got to those puck drops and practices on time. But to me, there's nothing more important than family. To me, the family at home is the number one blessing, regardless of what religion you believe in, that we were given here on this earth. And you take that love and then you share it with the rest of the world. And that's why, that's been our number one blessing forever and ever. But for me, it's everything. And I know you were talking earlier about the Hall of Fame induction and, the way it was all done. My wife knew about it months before I knew about it. She knew about it in February of 2020, of course, before, COVID and everything happened and the pandemic started. I was supposed to have flown down to Toronto a week into the pandemic, but again, it was canceled because everything started. And, but it's just moments like that my wife, my kids knew about it. And I didn't find out about it until July. And, I do have to question my boys, because how in the world could they keep a secret that long? And they can't keep a secret from me about my wife's birthday, Nicole's birthday, for a couple of days without sharing it. But they held on to that secret for that long. But for me, those moments, to be able to spend it with the people that you love and the people who enabled you to go out and do those things. I drug them all over the country, Canada, from Calgary to Ottawa. There's countless times that they had to sit in stands and hear people say, so many bad things about Dad because he threw an interception or he fumbled a ball or threw an incomplete pass. But just all those sacrifices that they had to make and all those times that they had to go through of dealing with the true realities while I lived this, and I'll call it a fake reality of being this football superstar, AKA celebrity. And a lot of times for my family, people didn't know who they were unless they were with me. And so for them to deal with those things, I'm truly thankful. And because if it wasn't for them, I never could have done that. If it wasn't for them, I never could have done this, because unfortunately for us, since I left last July from Ottawa, I've only seen them for 5 weeks because it's been hard to get to them because of the pandemic and the 2-week quarantine. So I've been here since February, when was the last time I saw them, on Super Bowl Sunday. And thankfully they'll be here in July, and we'll make the final move then. But I haven't seen them since February, the Super Bowl Sunday in February.
Wow.
And it's all because of the pandemic. And for them to be up there experiencing this, just those three, and me being separate, we don't feel like we're whole. And so when people ask me why is it about my family over everything else, is because of everything that they put up with just for Dad to go out and live out his dream. And I just hope that hopefully I've impacted my boys enough, and my wife has had such a great time, and this is something memorable for her, that she can say that it was worth it. And that, like I say to everybody, if I could have a couple of words to talk about what I hope to leave people with, it's, I hope I kept a smile on my wife's face, and I hope for her that it was worth it.
Beautiful. Let's talk about that moment when you were inducted, when you found out you were inducted into the Hall of Fame, because it was a pandemic moment. So they played a video for you. You're at home, your wife and kids are there. They put these really, really nice earphones. I noticed how you had a pretty nice set of headphones on for that video. And you're basically watching something on a laptop. You have no idea what it is. It's Damon Allen, the Hall of Fame quarterback. He talks a little bit about his own life story and his career, and then he starts talking about you. And then obviously at some point you realize this is the way they're telling you that you've been inducted in the Hall of Fame. Can you just kind of walk through that experience?
Well, it caught me off guard because my wife, she knew about it from day one. And she was part of the planning committee, or should I always call her the Illuminati, because I'm like, you're always behind these things. How did you know it was going to happen? And, but yeah, like I had no idea because of course everybody had been saying, hey, do you know if you're going in? Do you know if you're not going in? And of course I always play the fool and say, going where, going in where, doing what? But I knew, quite well what they were talking about. But just when that day came, I woke up that morning and just kind of getting the day started, and kids were doing their usual things, bouncing around the house. It's summertime. There's no school. They're waiting for Dad to get ready so we can go outside and play basketball or something. But then my wife asked me to come downstairs, and they had everything set up. The computer laptop was there. She had my headphones sitting down there. She said, hey, I want you to listen to something. She's like, I think you'll like this and appreciate this. And so I just sat down, not thinking anything at all. I just woke up. So I had no idea what was about to be played. And so I sat there, and all of a sudden I see Damon pop up. And as soon as I see him, my mind goes into quarterback mode as far as, okay, what's going on here? What's about to happen? Just as if I see the free safety move, or they,
right. You're reading the play.
Yeah, reading the coverage. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? What's going on right now? I'm trying to decipher what's going on and analyze this. And I had no idea that was happening. And I see Damon there talking. And as he's talking, I see the brand behind him, the emblem behind him.
Of the Hall of Fame.
The Hall of Fame. And I'm watching, and I'm like, no, this can't be that. And then all of a sudden I see that man pop up, who everybody knows as soon as you see his face, that means you're going into the Hall of Fame. And so as soon as I saw his face pop up, I just started crying, just started bawling and shedding tears. And I knew it was for real that time. But what made it for me even better was, hearing Damon talk about his journey as far as being a kid from California, who tried to get an opportunity in the NFL. They told him he wasn't good enough, but he had an opportunity to continue to, share his gift with others. And he came to Edmonton, Alberta, and started his career, which ended up turning into a Hall of Fame career. And then pretty much his story was my story. And it's just something how a guy that when I first got into Canada was the first to call me and say, hey, if you ever need anything, always give me a call. And now going into the next team after my professional career, the same guy makes the same first call, welcoming me to the next team. and saying pretty much the same thing. If you need me, we're here for you. And to be able to, experience those words and to have my boys right there with me and to have my wife there with me who, if there's anybody that, I wish they could make a bus of all of us together, you know what I mean? But there's anybody I could celebrate it with, it would be all three of those, because it goes to show for my kids that hard work does pay off, and people do recognize when you do hard work, and good things do come to those who are patient and do the things that you're supposed to do. And like I said, for my wife, I just hope that this meant that, it was worth it for her to follow me all over Canada, playing the game that I love, and for her to make all those sacrifices, to share me and my time with the rest of the world so that we could experience, the type of realities that we, are thankful to be experiencing.
It was a beautiful moment, and I encourage people to watch it. You can Google it and find the video. Tell me about the Burris Award in your household.
Well, we created a hustle award because, my wife, she was an All-American lacrosse player, women's field lacrosse player, and she's always found time to help out young women, regardless of where we live, to help them out in their aspirations of making it into university to play lacrosse. And she loves the game so much. So due to the fact that she played lacrosse at a high level, and thankfully I was able to have the career that I had as far as in football. To both of our boys, it's the whole standard situation where the fact that my wife has a degree, she maintained a certain grade point average as well as I did. But we both carried ourselves with a certain standard and expectation, no matter what we did in life. And so we made sure that our kids had that competitive nature about themselves, regardless of what it was. I mean, the Burris Award is about attacking everything head on and never using excuses and never wavering from what the truth is. The truth is what you put into it shall become reality. And so the fact is, we wanted our kids to attack every day like that and seize every opportunity. And we didn't care if it was a board game or playing outside with your friends. You play to win. And so we also involved in that was what we called the Hustle Award, because so that's biggest portion of that was the hustle and the effort that you put into everything that you did. And so each and every week it was like a meal that somebody would get, and wherever that person wanted to go and whatever they wanted to get, they could get it. And everybody else would have to, conceive to that thought and just go and enjoy it, and concede to that part, and just go and enjoy it. And that's how the Burris Award was created. It's like giving your all to become your all. And it still exists till this day.
Right on. So every week you hand it out to somebody in the family.
Yes.
To just the kids, or could you and Nicole win it too?
Well, Nicole and I, we can get it also. And it's based on just the hard work that we put in. And,
yeah, nice.
And right now it's just all the awards are mounting up because right now, unfortunately, the pandemic has postponed the celebrations, but they're ongoing right now. And my wife, she's killing it. She's winning all the awards for everything that she's doing. I mean,
sure.
She's been helping stage our house, and she's been, cooking meals for the kids and helping the kids understand how they can make their own meals and doing those different things. She's been doing the taxes for us. And here I am down here working away doing football. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so she's been winning them weekly, but it's been outstanding. And it becomes pretty competitive in our house with our boys, and it's almost turned into some fights. But thankfully, the cooler heads have prevailed in those moments.
So the last thing I want to ask you about, of course, is the Grey Cup in 2016. And as we mentioned earlier, you had a moment in your career where you felt this pop in your knee. And then you're going into the Grey Cup game, the championship game of Canadian football in 2016, and you're warming up on the field before the game, and you feel the pop again, right? And you actually tore ligaments in your knee before the championship game. And at that point, I think you had a pretty good idea that was going to be your last game, right?
I knew as soon as they had signed Trevor Harris, I knew that was going to be my last year because, again, I had been a part of that same swan song earlier in my career, and I knew exactly what was about to happen as far as at that point. And so I said, as soon as they signed him, I told my wife, I was like, baby, you have to let me play this last year. Because again, she knew exactly what was about to happen, and they, were going to force me out. And so it was one of those situations where it's like, let me just play this last year, because we had just lost the Grey Cup. I was just the MVP of the league. It's like, let me play this last year and at least get this out of my system, because if I don't do it, I'll regret it 20, 30 years down the road. And I'm thankful I did do it. I mean, unfortunately, it was paired with some injuries and stuff like that, of course, and having the cartilage tear and before the final game.
So
But
yeah, just walk through that. You get this pop, and I mean, I'm watching the game on TV, and they're talking about how you went off the field early, and you're being treated, and people don't even know if you're going to start the game, and then you come out, and then of course you guys win the championship in overtime, and the last pass of your career is a championship winning touchdown pass for a 39-33 win. And so, I mean, were you afraid you were not going to be able to play when that happened, or did you just not even go there?
I didn't go there because I didn't, for me, I didn't want to think about that because, for all you have put in to get to that moment. And I know when I came back to the sideline, because I've seen the actual TV copy a couple of times now. Of course, I tear up every time I watch it, but I hear myself as soon as I come back on the field, I'm on the sidelines talking to a couple of guys. I say, man, what more can I go through? Because, to get to that moment, and I've already had the finger occur, at that point, and now all of a sudden I get to this final game where I had to, get my, I guess, Stella get her groove back, I guess you can say, and just to be able to get my starting job back and to help, the team get to that moment to have that occur at that moment in time, thinking this is my last game and this is how I'm going out. It's like this. But to know Dave Wright and Marcelo Cuenca, Dr. Greenberg, and all the great doctors that we had on our medical staff, I knew it wasn't anything super serious, but I know it was serious enough to keep me out of the game. But I knew just kind of where everything was. I knew if, with the magic of their hands and their professionalism and all the different techniques and things that they could do, I knew they could figure something out. I just had belief in it. I had faith as far as in that moment. And man, when they put their heads together and they came out and gave me some miracle pill where I was getting hit hard and I couldn't feel a thing, and I was laughing at guys. They're like, "Hey, they hit hurt." I was like, "I didn't feel it." And but for them to do that and to fix the brace to where that cartilage wouldn't be affected during the course of the game, that was all I needed to hear, because I told the doc, I can heal I can rehab for the next 60 years of my life, but I'll never get this back. And to be able to go out there on that field and be able to play that game, and I knew once I got into that game, and we knew in our hearts as a team that we were going to win that game. But again, me being a part of that equation, for me was a major part of that. I didn't want to end my career that way, because for us, all of us guys, we had went through a 2-win season in year one and coming 2 minutes away from winning a Grey Cup in year two. And we were like, we got to finish this together. And so for the doctors to do what they did and to see the sideline go crazy and the fans, feel the way they did about me being able to come back out and play with our team, and for us to play the way we did as a team, regardless of everything that Calgary did. And they fought us tooth and nail down to the finish as a championship team would. And they were, destiny was in our favor. We were a team that had been there. We'd overcame everything. We've been through all types of adversity, including the pregame. But for us to keep our eye on the prize and not allow anything to hold us back from our destiny, that's truly the team that we were.
It was an incredible moment. And what did it, when that moment happened, when you threw that touchdown pass, what describe what that felt like?
It was crazy because I didn't even see what had happened. All I knew is I threw the ball and I got spun around by one of their D linemen. So my back was actually to the play as it was happening. So I didn't know Ejac had bobbled the ball. I just heard the crowd go crazy because, just as Jamie Elizondo, our offensive coordinator, who's now the head coach for the Edmonton Eskimos, drew the play up, we knew what the play action would hold Alex Singleton, who's with the Philadelphia Eagles. And we knew the play action would hold him in the middle, and just everything going to the right. All the different routes being ran by the receivers are going to the right. We knew it would create a hole on the second level, about 8 to 10 yards. And I just had to make sure my feet were ready and deliver an accurate pass. And Ejac, a guy who didn't drop a ball all year, would handle the rest. And man, as soon as I let it go, I just believed. I had that same faith always that I had when I'm up on the table and they're sticking a needle into my knee, that this was going to work. I kept that same faith. And in that moment, that same faith paid off once again. But that's just the type of team that we had. We believed, we loved one another. But in fact, of more than loving one another, we loved each other's families. And in those moments, we never wavered and we never backed down from any type of challenge.
Last question, Henry. I read something about where you're talking about being in the stands for other people. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know that this connects to a lot of the charity work, the philanthropic work you've done, the work you've done with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and other, the work you've done with kids. So what does that mean to you, being in the stands for other people?
Well, for us, it's providing that pathway, providing that path for somebody to achieve that dream that may not once thought they had that dream, or thought they had hoped of achieving that dream. Because the one thing that we had as kids, Mark, yourself, myself, we all had that Disney mentality. We could wish upon a star, and whatever we dreamed about, it could always come true. Whether it was in grade 1, and when they asked us, what do you want to be when you grow up, you say a fireman or a doctor or whatever. Every kid deserves that opportunity to make that dream come true, regardless of who you are. And the reason why I believe in Big Brothers and Big Sisters is they help provide that hope. They help provide that mentorship, because again, for all the craziness that's taking place in the world today, nobody from Justin Trudeau down to Joe Biden to any CEO of any company would be in that position if it wasn't for somebody believing in them. And so every kid deserves that same opportunity. They deserve that same belief, and they deserve that same person in their life to help construct that attitude, or as far as build that thought process within them of letting them know that you matter and your dream will come true. Once you do instill that within them, hand that baton off and just sit back in the stands and watch them go off and just bud like a flower. And to me, when you plant that seed, just sit back and watch it grow. And I'm thankful I was able to do that and see so many kids who came from broken homes now that have gone on and achieved their university degrees and have went on to establish themselves in the workforce. And now for us, we're ready to take that dream down here, because if anybody truly needs that, kids here in the U.S. do, with all the craziness that's going on. They deserve to live the same dreams that each and every, grown woman or man does today. Why do people want to prey on others? I have no idea, because in order for us to live the lives that we live, we needed people to believe in us. And so that's why I developed that mentality of giving them the resources that they need to make their dreams come true, and just sitting back in the stands and watching them go out and achieve their dream.
Amazing. Henry, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your insights, your lessons. You're just a remarkable guy. And your track record is, just says so much about what you've done. Your track record as a football player and as a human being. And I wish you so much success with the Bears. And I know this phase of your career is just going to flourish and take you so many interesting places. So thank you for everything you've shared with us today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Mark, I always enjoyed talking to you, and thank you so much for thinking of me, and everybody stay safe in Ottawa, you and your family as well, and get those vaccinations done.
I really like that message about being in the stands for other people. Sometimes you're the quarterback, but more often than not, you're the person cheering someone else on. I also really like what Henry said about how we have two hands, one to work and one to give back. And I love the fact that Henry prizes his wedding ring over all of his championship rings. So once again, a huge thank you to Henry Burris, a terrific person, for joining us on Digging Deep. If you enjoyed this episode, please review it and share it with others. That will help us produce more great episodes. And if you want to keep digging deep into topics and lessons like this, or see the show notes for this episode, or subscribe to our weekly newsletter, or read my daily blog, you can do all of that at letsdigdeep.com. That's letsdigdeep.com. And get ready for more great stories and powerful lessons on the next edition of Digging Deep. Thank you for listening.